Here are the deleted moments that the NBA doesn't want fans to see. Let's start things off with Giannis Antetokounmpo's ladder moment. Giannis Antetokounmpo literally climbed the ladder of life when he rose to become a two-time MVP and an NBA champion after living in poverty in Greece throughout his entire childhood life. He's the NBA's rags to riches story, and a lot of things have been said about how humble Giannis is because of his equally humble beginnings. But in 2022, he had a minor incident in Philly where he was shooting free throws after a game when he shot horrendously from the foul stripe and a loss to the Sixers. While he was shooting free throws, a Philadelphia staffer brought a ladder to remove the net on the ring as this was his job. Giannis, however, felt disrespected by the actions of the employee and pushed the ladder, causing it to fall. The incident got blown out of proportion when it happened, as people started accusing Giannis of disrespecting the employee. Some people sided with the Greek freak, saying that the employee was in the wrong. Whatever the case, this is a bad look on a man who was supposed to be the symbol of humility in the NBA. While it became a big story days after it happened, it became a forgotten story that not a lot of people, including the NBA's head honchos, talked about. The league was simply allowing this incident to die a natural death, as talking about it would only make Giannis look bad in the eye of the media. Next, we have Josh Giddey with a minor moment. Before the 2023-24 season began, there were already speculations regarding OKC Thunder guard Josh Giddey having illicit relationships with a minor. The police started investigating rumors of Giddey's actions when social media rumors surfaced. Back when the alleged relationship happened, Giddey was new in the US after spending most of his years in Australia. He was just 19 years old when he met a girl in a nightclub, but the problem was that this woman was just 15 years old at that time. By law, this is illegal because people over the age of 18 cannot have such relationships with anyone under 18 years old. However, while social media hasn't been kind to Giddey, the NBA didn't cover the news so much, making it clear that the league left the investigation to the police. But the police eventually cleared Giddey after investigations when the alleged victim didn't want to cooperate. In the Pat Bev podcast, Patrick Beverley and Roan talked about how the Thunder organization may have always known about it.
Allegedly, Josh Giddey had relations with an underage.
I don't even want to talk about it. I got a daughter.
Yeah, that sucks.
I don't even want to think about it. I have a daughter.
And it seems like the Thunder organization knew about it.
I don't know. I just know I have a daughter.
Of course, Pat Bev was clearly affected by the situation because he has a daughter who he doesn't want to imagine can possibly get involved in a similar incident. It may be possible that something big was involved in this situation, especially with Giddey earning millions of dollars in the NBA. The league may have also been looking to protect one of its young international stars because ever since Ben Simmons' downfall, Josh Giddey has been the NBA's brightest young Australian star. But here's another young star who had trouble with the law as well. When the Houston Rockets traded James Harden, they signed Kevin Porter Jr., who looked like he had the skills and talent to be the team's next lead guard. Of course, this wasn't the case throughout his stay in Houston. He was a good scorer and a capable passer, but the Rockets just couldn't get anywhere with Porter Jr. playing point for them. We know that the Rockets signed veteran Fred VanVleet to become the team's lead guard, and Porter Jr. ultimately became dispensable when he faced legal problems that convinced the Houston front office to dump him overseas. In September 2023, he was arrested in New York when he allegedly assaulted his girlfriend, WNBA player Kaiser Gondrezick.
Player Kevin Porter Jr. was arrested at a Manhattan hotel for domestic assault, allegedly. Police say the Houston Rockets guard assaulted his girlfriend at the Millennium Hotel overnight.
While some of the charges got dropped, it became clear that Porter Jr.'s time in Houston was over. The Rockets traded him to the OKC Thunder during the offseason. Meanwhile, the Thunder waived KPJ just moments after they got him in the trade. No one in the NBA wanted Kevin Porter Jr. and the baggage that he brought with him, regardless of how talented he may be. He's better than most bench players or even some starters in the league, but he's now in Europe, balling in smaller gyms and for smaller professional teams. While the NBA left the police to do its job, the fact that none of the other 28 teams in the league wanted to sign him is proof that this is a moment that the league wanted us to forget. Up next, Miles Bridges faced a similar problem but was luckier than KPJ. Miles Bridges was coming off the best season of his career and was a highlight reel up-and-coming star who electrified the Charlotte Hornet fans with his aerial assault. But speaking of assault, the skies were not the only ones unsafe when Bridges was around. In 2022, Bridges was arrested for allegedly assaulting his former girlfriend and the mother of his 2 children.
Miles Bridges was arrested yesterday for felony domestic violence out in Los Angeles. The alleged assault took place on Tuesday. Law enforcement says the woman required medical attention by doctors, but by the time the police arrived, Bridges was gone.
In the same year, he was sentenced to 3 years of probation with no jail time. The NBA, meanwhile, slapped him with a 30-game suspension. He missed the entire 2022-23 season when he and the Hornets decided that he would sit out the entire year. But unlike other players who were basically blacklisted from the NBA, Bridges returned during the 2023-24 season. While the Hornets play-by-play announcer is no longer hyping the high-flying forward whenever he does something spectacular, Bridges is lucky that he's still in the NBA and is putting up at least 20 points per game despite his legal problems. Of course, the NBA did indeed do its job by punishing Bridges for his actions off the court. However, the fact that the league has been mostly silent about this situation while still allowing him to play in the NBA tells the whole story. Next, let's talk about how we still don't know what Chris Webber was trying to say here. Chris Webber is a lot of things. He helped change the entire culture of basketball with his work with the Fab Five back in college. Of course, he made the Sacramento Kings relevant during his stint with that team when he was at the prime of his career. He also did a good job as a broadcaster after his NBA career. But while he may be an articulate man who can deliver great speeches and lines, the most infamous moment involving Webber may have been the reason why we no longer hear him on television. In 2020, the NBA was finishing out the 2019-20 season in the Orlando bubble due to COVID-19. That was also the height of the Black Lives Matter movement in the NBA when there were certain injustices involving police officers and Black Americans. To that end, the NBA doubled up on its social justice movement by allowing players to make their own statements regarding different social issues all over the world. But there's this one weird moment that seemed out of place. After LeBron hit a big shot in the Lakers' playoff matchup with the Portland Trail Blazers, Webber, who was calling the game, went off script to talk about how players should not or should compartmentalize.
It's a beautiful shot, and the Lakers are up, but when you're a black man in this country, you can't compartmentalize. You must compartmentalize to stay sane.
The statement was completely out of topic and wasn't even connected to what was happening in the game. On top of that, it didn't even make sense at all, even when connected to the BLM social justice movement. About a year after that incident, Chris Webber's contract with TNT ended after spending more than a decade calling games for them. It's a deleted scene that may have cost Webber his job, as he took the opportunity to try to say something he thought would make sense, but only made people wonder what in the world he was trying to say. Speaking of broadcasters, the late great Tommy Hinson can't keep his comments about Aaron Baines to himself. Not a lot of current fans know who Aaron Baines is, but the real OGs know who Tom Hinson was. He was one of the greatest Celtics to ever play the game. Hinson eventually transitioned to broadcasting, becoming a color commentator for the Boston Celtics home games. Back then, the Australian big man Aaron Baines was playing for the Celtics when Hinson made a ridiculous comment about his man parts, claiming that he visited him in the Celtics locker room and saw how big he actually is.
Okay, I took a look at Baines in the shower. He looks like all of Australia. He is really put together.
Of course, Hinson didn't exactly say which part of Baines was put together well, but we all know that he was talking about that place down under. The NBA is a family league, and it's important to note that kids watch these games on a regular basis. The league barely commented on the issue, as it got lost in history as one of the most outrageous and unnecessary statements a broadcaster has ever made on live television. Of course, we can't forget about Ime Udoka's scandalous affair. Ime Udoka was on top of the mountain in 2022 when he led the Boston Celtics to the NBA Finals, where they lost to the Golden State Warriors. Despite losing, Udoka's future was seemingly bright because he was leading a team that had young guys who wanted to get back to the finals and win it all again. The only problem was that he fumbled the bag. Fresh off his finals loss, Emeka Udoka was allegedly having an affair with one of the members of the Boston Celtics staff, even though he was already married to actress Nia Long. The scandal was so big at that time that Udoka got suspended from his job as the team's head coach. It also led to the end of his marriage with Long, as there was no way for the couple to reconcile their problems. In short, Udoka lost his job as the coach of one of the most talented teams in the NBA and lost his wife because of his alleged affair. However, a lot of fans have forgotten about this scandal because Udoka is now back on the bench as a head coach. He accepted the job as the new head coach of the Houston Rockets in 2023 after a whole year away from the game to fix his mess. The NBA, of course, also did a good job of toning down the entire situation, allowing some fans to forget about the huge drama. Speaking of drama, we can't forget about the Kyrie Irving situation. For a lot of years, Kyrie Irving was an enigma because no one knew what was going on in his head. He alienated teammates, said the world was flat, and broke promises to his team. Of course, the most infamous incidents in Irving's life came during the pandemic when it looked like he just couldn't do anything right. Irving famously became a problem to the Brooklyn Nets when he couldn't play half the team's games because he refused to get vaccinated. After that, he was missing games for personal reasons, even though he was just partying. Moreover, he got suspended by the team for what was initially seen as discrimination from the star point guard. At that point, Irving was a head case, and even Stephen A. Smith thought that he should retire because he always found a way to miss games.
Do you think that Kyrie is worth all of this drama?
No, he's not. He's not worth it at all. A matter of fact, I think Kyrie Irving should retire. Clearly, you don't want to play basketball bad enough.
Irving lost his sponsorship deals, including Nike, despite the fact that he had some of the highest-selling sneakers from the company. But while Irving has moved on from the Nets and has now been balling well for the Dallas Mavericks, the league did a great job at making us forget that he used to be a distraction for teams he played for. Of course, he's also done a great job maturing as a person since his problematic days in Brooklyn. Now let's talk about what happened to the Phoenix Suns owner. Unlike some of the team owners in the NBA, Robert Sarver, the former owner of the Phoenix Suns, was an active part of the team's development. But the problem was that there were reports that he wasn't the best owner in terms of his personality. In 2022, there were allegations of racism and sexism within the Phoenix Suns organization, and it started at the top with Sarver himself. He was known as a loudmouth who always tried to use his money to get away with things, but the worst part was that he humiliated coaches and players alike by acting like he knew better than the actual guys coaching and playing in the NBA. The NBA eventually launched an investigation that led to the conclusion that the allegations of Sarver's racist and misogynistic behaviors were right. They forced him to sell the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury after he got suspended from the league for a year. In December 2022, Sarver finally sold the team to Matt Ishbia, ending his 17-year tenure as the owner of the Phoenix Suns. But as disgraceful as this moment was, it wasn't even as big as the Donald Sterling mess that happened years prior when he made racist remarks as the owner of the LA Clippers. It's likely that this incident didn't get the same attention because it's the Phoenix Suns and not an LA or a New York team, but the NBA may have also made sure to keep the problem in check. Finally, let's get back to Giannis, who went ballistic over a game ball. In the middle of December 2023, Giannis Antetokounmpo had a career night when he broke the Milwaukee Bucks' single-game record for points in a win over the Indiana Pacers. Take note that a rivalry between these two teams had already been brewing due to an earlier meeting in the in-season tournament semifinals, where the Pacers beat the Bucks. Things were personal for Giannis when he made a statement by dominating the Pacers in that game. Of course, he not only had a career high, but also broke the team record in points. Naturally, he would want to go home with the game ball to commemorate that personal achievement. But the game ball seemingly went missing, and Giannis believed that the Pacers may have taken it after they left the court without shaking hands with the Bucks. He chases the Pacers into the locker room, seemingly intent on getting the ball back. It turned out that one of the Pacers' assistants may have taken the ball to give it to a third-string player who had just scored his first career basket in the NBA. After he retrieved the ball from the Pacers, Giannis said that he wasn't sure whether or not he had the game ball or the backup ball.
I have the ball, but I don't know if it's a game ball. It doesn't feel like the game ball to me. It feels like a brand new ball.
He also cleared up that he didn't want the ball for himself, but for Damian Lillard, who moved 5th in all-time career three-pointers made.
The ball that they gave us, I offered it to Dame. I scored 60. He scored multiple times 60. He scored 70, and he should have the ball.
According to Tyrese Halliburton in the JJ Redick podcast, however, the only reason why the Pacers left the game early was that they didn't want to shake hands with a team that kicked their butts, and not because they wanted to take the game ball away from them. He also said that the Bucks always had the actual game ball. Meanwhile, the Pacers took off with the backup ball.
And I think one of our assistants, Mike Weiner, had the basketball. Had a basketball, not the basketball, a basketball. Right. And he walked off with it, and I think Giannis saw it, and they had the ball the whole time.
The Bucks did.
The Bucks had the ball.
They already had the ball.
The whole time.
Wait, so which is the ball that Giannis ran off with? That was Weiner's ball?
That he ran for?
Yeah.
The backup ball.
Stephen A. Smith, however, didn't believe the Pacers at all, thinking that it was a stupid excuse to take the game ball and give it to a rookie who had just scored his first career points.
The whole Giannis Antetokounmpo story that took place in Milwaukee last night, to me, is a silly story, but it was made silly by the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers did take the game ball at the buzzer, but it wasn't because the team was trying to steal it from Giannis. It was because they wanted it for their rookie. That might be the stupidest lie I've ever heard in the history of basketball.
Whatever the case, the NBA has swept the entire issue under the rug and didn't do anything about it at all because, let's face it, Giannis is probably right up there with the likes of LeBron James and Steph Curry as one of the most untouchable players in the league. Fans will remember this incident, but the league hasn't touched on it a lot, and didn't even try to discipline the players for the situation, as it's possible that the NBA bigwigs are trying to dismiss the situation seemingly to protect the reputation of the players involved.